Welcome to Patrick's Scale Studio. My name is Patrick and I'll be your host. So today we are working on Verifiers 1/350th scale USS Missouri. And we're going to be modeling her as she appeared in 1945 after the Japanese signed the surrender on her decks. She's coming home. And where we last left off in video 4, we were starting to get the main armament put together. So we've got, there's all 3 of them right there. On this one here, actually, well, I was working on getting this piece to fit properly, and it turns out it's just this particular one. These little back pieces came off, but it is readily apparent that there is nowhere you're ever going to see those again after these go down. So I really didn't shed any tears over those pieces falling off. And I did start taking apart some of the detail upset, not taking it apart, but taking out some of the detail upset here and getting the blast bags separated from the sprue from the kit, just to kind of see how things would go together. So that looks pretty exciting. Of course, it doesn't stand up in there all on its own. But yeah, that will look really nice. Those barrels are just turned aluminum. At first, it's kind of like, wait, what the heck? Everything in the instructions shows brass, but the turned aluminum barrels are going to be much lighter than brass, so they will definitely stay put a lot easier. So I really like the look of the barrels there. Not to mention, I don't know how it'll look, but I can just actually even mask off that little bit of the portion of the barrel that's supposed to be left in kind of like bright metal and paint the rest of it. I don't know. Well, when that time comes, we'll have to have a look and see how that looks. I'm going to put those aside for now. I'm going to put a little blast bag aside for now and kind of show you where I've started here. I started work on one of the armor plate pieces that go on the turrets right there. So this is how let me put one out. This is how they come. You can see there is a really nice detail there. Rivets, and these are actually in the real thing aren't rivets. These are very large, and I mean very large slotted screws, big slotted machine screws. But in order to use the detail upset, you've got to get a lot sanded off of these parts as they come. And they're really nicely detailed. If you're not going to use the detail upset, these will take a wash and show off everything very nicely. But compare what we've done here. More focus, please. Alright, you can kind of see here the front face of this. We had to sand off all those ladders and all of that little plate detail that goes around each of the holes where it would be connecting the blast bags to this armor plate. We also have to get rid of all that nice detail on the top, including these little areas here. This is where this is for the rangefinders, and they get put on, over here later on here. So the tops of those, there's photo etch pieces that go on top of there. And then you also have to get rid of the ladder detail on the side. So got that done, and I've got everything sanded down to a 1000 grit. At 1/350th, you don't really want any scratches showing up. It's not really supposed to look like rough metal at 1/350th scale. If you were right up in person with your hand on it, you probably would see some variations in the steel. But the top right there is just only sanded with a regular sanding stick. I think this is about a 320 grit, and I'm not really overly concerned about that because it's going to be getting these parts right here. It's going to get one of these on top of it. So it's actually better if it's a little bit more roughly sanded. It'll help the CA glue adhere to it better. And that's another thing we're going to have to do is we're going to have to rough up the bottoms of these slightly. Again, just to kind of help the CA glue really hold it down. So let me put this aside and kind of show you here what I've done with this. I'll probably go into fast forward mode because I don't know about you, but nothing is really more boring than watching someone else sand a plastic kit part. There we go. I got that separated from the sprue. And these are all slide molded pieces. You can kind of see how they're offered up on the sprue. There's nothing on the back side, and that's fine. But right around here, you know, the slide mold comes in and does all this beautiful, wonderful molding on 1, 2, 3, 4 faces of the part. So I just take the regular sanding stick and just kind of start sanding it. Alright, so that segment was sped up by 10 or 16 times. So you can kind of get an idea of, this is just, like I said, about a 320 grit, which would be considered pretty fine if you were doing woodworking. For plastic and metal, though, it is not that fine. So on areas like this that are not going to be completely covered by photo etch, I've been going back with 400. And I'm trying to do my best to make sure that this sanding stick, and it is a rigid sanding stick, is remaining flat and in contact with the entire surface, because I don't want to round off the corners. Alright, so that was 400, and we're moving up to 600. It's already starting to look buttery smooth, so we'll move into 800. And yeah, it would be a lot quicker to start off with a heavier grit, but the one thing I don't want to have to worry about doing, well, it takes a little bit longer to sand with a finer grit. If I do manage to impart a large gouge in the plastic from the heavier grit, and then I have to fill it, and then I have to sand that smooth. So all in all, slow and steady here for me is winning the race. Here's our 1000 grit. And it's not going to be shiny like the untouched plastic, but it definitely feels excellent. So as you can see, there is some flash here and there, so just again a real super light touch. Kind of get this off. The Verifier plastic seems to be, this is my very first Verifier kit, and the Verifier plastic seems to be little soft. So I'm trying to go at any kind of sanding or cutting projects on these parts with a little bit of deliberateness and trepidation, just to make sure that I'm not taking away anything, any unwanted plastic. Or I'm only taking away the unwanted plastic, I should say. And when you sand down the front face like that, this tiny little ridge down here suffers a little bit, along with getting rid of that flash. So Back with, again, the sanding sticks. And this moves a little bit faster. Alright, so we got that onto the top here. Again, we're going to be speeding this up here, but we want this to match this, and then even after this, we've got one more to go. Alright, so I'm not going to do any finer grades of sandpaper here because, again, we're not going to see this. We're going to see a nice big photo etch plate that goes on top. But these two little pieces here that I was avoiding sanding into so I wouldn't round off the corners, they also have to get that little rivet or screw detail sanded off. Sounds good. And there it is. A little fiberglass pencil here to check what everything looks like without all the sanding dust all over. Looks pretty good. So then I also did the back face of this, and this is just because it feels like there's almost like a little seam there and a little bit of spillover of the screw detail there. So I just kind of took this, and again, I just really taking a light touch on this and going slow, so I'm not removing too much material, and it allows me to keep the face of this flat against the surface. Any pressure that I'm exerting to the sanding stick to the part is pressure inside, and that's allowing the part of the sanding stick I'm not putting pressure on just to kind of barely wash over the edges there, so we're not rounding anything off. Alright, so when it's coming to this right here, I do not use the heavier grit. Start off right off the bat with a 400, and I always cut these things up, and so that way I can kind of get in there and do a little bit of details sanding, or just a little bit more precision. And there you have it. That ladder detail is now completely erased from this side. So we got that other side to go, and got these sprue nibs to clean up, and any last little remaining flash on here, and we'll be ready to move on to the next step here in prepping these for the detail upset. Alrighty, I've gotten all three of these sanded and prepped. On the bottoms, everything is looking clean, no flash, no sprue nibs, so I'm happy with preparation on those. So the next step in preparing these for photo etch is drilling holes. This is in the regular instructions for the kit, not the detail up. instructions for the kit. And notice here is this goes to, this is for turrets number 2 and 3. If you do this to all, well, I guess you could do it to all 3 of them if you wanted, because this right here would just cover up the holes that you'd be drilling. This is for turret 1, this is for turrets 2 and 3. The difference is right over here, there's turret 1, pretty much has nothing on top of it. It's going to have some rails around the edge though. Turret 2 and 3 though is going to have an anti-aircraft gun tub, which is the quad Bofors, along with a gun director up front of that, and again some railings all around it. So that's the difference. You get 2 of these, turrets 2 and 3, and you get 1 of these, turret 1. So I've never actually had this happen to me before, but when I was removing the plastic on these, oh, and this one's going to do it too, these literally just started popping out. This one popped out on its own. And this one's just kind of breaking loose on its own as well. I'm not even putting any pressure on this at all. It's just almost flapping in the breeze. That's not a bad thing, and I'm okay with that. So I'm going to hold this up and show you the relief on this part. Now it's going to be a little difficult because of the glare from the lights, but you can kind of make out some of the, I wouldn't call rivet detail, but it really is just, you know, in real life those are gigantic slotted screws. And this is going to go in place on top of here. And the step 2 of our preparation is going to be drilling these holes, and it points out in the instructions. Those holes are going to be for turrets 2 and turrets 3. Turret 1 again has nothing on top practically. It's going to have a couple of little posts, and that's really about it. So we flip these over, we can see the holes they're talking about that we have to drill out. And it instructs us 1 millimeter on these 2 back holes and 1.2 millimeter on these 2 front holes. So we've got our, this goes all the way up to 1.2 millimeters. And I'm just going to really lightly barely any pressure at all. I really want this drill to make its own way without any pressure. And because the plastic is so soft, I'm afraid it would tear out. So now it started to catch, and so I actually almost put like a bit of a pulling pressure on it after it catches, just so it doesn't feed itself through too fast. See, there it goes. This is what I mean when it feeds itself through. As you turn it, it's not actually cutting any longer, it's just pulling itself through. So you have to pull back a little bit. And now I've got a hole. Alright. I don't want to put down too much more, and in fact that might be almost too much. Let's go ahead and just start spreading around, starting from the inside. I'm not going to go all the way to the edge for the most part. All right. This is going to start to grip just about immediately. And look at that. It went down in place. Didn't curl up. Alright, well, the next step, as I see it, is going to involve, let's get this out of here, putting these parts on here where the rangefinders go. See these top little strips? So like I said earlier, I'm going to do one on my own just to make sure I'm comfortable with how it goes, and then we'll do it on camera. So you can see the gray plastic there on the top where those go. And I would like to call out, if you're using this detail upset, that is a misprint, B24, because it is not B24. In fact, those parts are found on the J fret, and they're labeled parts 3 and 4, not B23 and B24. I've already got a pair cut out here, and right off the bat it's important to make sure when you're cutting them out you have an incredibly sharp, almost new blade on your scalpel or X-Acto knife. I found the wax pencil to be incredibly helpful as well, and then also you want to make sure that you've got these set up to go on the specific sides that they are arranged to go. As you can see, they are handed here. So that goes there. If it went over here, it would look a little funny. I'm going to try to hold this up to the camera so you can see a little bit better. I am showing that it definitely does not go on that side, but it definitely goes on this side. The nice thing is the fret, with that misprint, the fret has a couple extras of these. So that's a nice thing. And all I'm going to do here is wipe off the tip of my toothpick. Is I've got a little bit of the VMS Flexi 5K, and I'm going to just take it just a touch right on the very end of the toothpick, and then just barely touch it down to the plastic here and kind of drag it along. So now there is just a bare amount on there. And I'll hold that up so you can see. Come on, focus, focus, focus. There we go. Alright, and you know what? I bet if I zoom in a little bit for you. Yeah, there we go. And then I'm just using my wax pencil. I just barely touch the part, and then I get to the spot where it goes and touch it down. And the Flexi 5K CA, for the most part, just pulls it right off. And I'm not going to touch it or anything like that after that. I just kind of nudged it with my fingernail to line it up a little bit more precisely. And then we're going to go to the other side. Alright, the next step, as I see it, especially while we have some CA glue fresh and ready to go, is going to be putting on these little posts. You get 6 of them in the detail upset. They do not come in the regular kit, and you can see them right there and there. And these are on turrets 2 and 3, and what they do is they hold up this anti-aircraft gun tub. It's important to note, though, that they also get placed on turret 1. Now, I did verify through online pictures that they're there on turret 1, so that is not just inaccuracy by verifier. They are, in fact, there. And those parts go into these holes right here and here, or on turret 1 right there and there. And I cut this out. I did not clean it up. I'm going to show you what happens here. Let me zoom in again. Alright, there we go. So we've got this, and this is the one that I've already put some on. And then you've got the anti-aircraft gun tub right there. And you just put that place, and what they do is, let me get that there, is they hold up the front end of that, and they do so on these lovely little molded ribs or gussets on the bottom of this part right here. So I'm going to go ahead and put this aside. You get 6 of these, exactly 6, and I've already used 2. So you can see there's 4 more, and be forewarned, if you are doing this kit, they are very, very susceptible to pinging off. And they do not sit real well with a wax pencil, so I only take them out as I need. Go ahead and do this one here because this is the one that actually really truly needs them. And one thing I noticed on these, and I'll go ahead and get this and hold it up. You can see it's very, very tiny. Is that the way these were taken off, you can kind of see a little spur right there on the end of that very, very thin part. I think that's just where, while they were being turned, that's where they got parted. So I'm having to go back here with some nippers, and I don't usually like cutting brass with my Tamiya side cuts, but it's kind of a necessary thing here because you really need precision to get that off. Once we got that off, and that tiny little nub faces up, you'll see on the finished part here, I get that trapped in the tweezers, and I'm positive when my wife watches this, I'm going to get a "You're Ridiculous, Patrick," because I'd absolutely have to wear a magnifier to see what I'm doing. And as you can see, it just it's made in such a way that it's an exact fit to that hole. And I do mean exact fit. So you rock it back and forth a little bit. It might come out one side and then sit up on top of the brass instead of down in that hole. But that's pretty much that. And they do not sit in there really well. But that's one end. Well, we are getting close to the point at which time we're going to have to put these guys down here on the entire gun assembly or structure. Or I'm not sure if this itself is called a barbette or not, but there are a couple things still left to do. So one thing I want to get done here, kind of allow to cure a little bit here with plastic cement, is getting the rangefinders put into place. I'll go ahead and zoom in again. So we're going to start here, and we're going to do this on the turret number 1. And I'm going to do so using a little bit of the white cap. And just a little bit of white cap. Ooh, a little stringy there. Alright, so the parts are labeled I5 and I6. However, you can cut both off and not get them mixed up. because they're handed, and it will look completely wrong and ridiculous if you get the wrong part onto the wrong side. So this right here was I5, but I'll give you, for instance here, if we took I6 and put it in place on the wrong side, you've got that. It looks more like an ear. So these are supposed to kind of be flat, or the tops of these parallel with the tops of the turrets. Well, these have all set, all the rangefinders have set, and they are now, I would like to say, permanently in place. As model builders, we already know there's no such thing as permanently in place, but as permanently as we can do it. So the next step is going to be getting this stuff on the bottom. This is turret 2, and we do this for turret 3. We do not do this for turret 1. It does not have any kind of accommodation for this business here on the back end. So what that encompasses is going to be, it says here, parts A19 and A14. A14 right here is this little basket looking piece. And I'll hold everything up here when we get close. The one thing I do appreciate about these instructions that I don't see with Pontos or even with like the trumpeter instructions here is on A14 we see 2 red lines going through it, and that actually keys to up here where it's an up fold, including the fact that they even show the orientation of the part with how that's going to be folded. This part right here that's shaded is the etched bit of A14. So I'll hold that up here for everyone to have a look. So basically we're just going to fold each of these little like scaffolding wing kind of things here. I'm going to fold them up. So that is A14. Now the one thing that the instructions omitted here is, if you look very closely at this picture, there are 2 little hatches here. You just barely make them out. Now, if you look at the part those 2 hatches would be on, because it only lists A19, those little hatches are not there. Instead, there's an outline for the parts that it's supposed to be, the parts that are supposed to be going on there, and that is these teeny tiny little bits here. And these are on the sheet of as A17. And they look like that. So there's the wax pencil center, just for reference on size. But that right there is what goes there. And if you look and strain your eyes hard enough, there is actually even a side with hinges that I've been putting to the rear of the turrets. So I'll do the same on this one here. So the first thing we've got to do is get this part prepped for this stuff to go down. These right here, if we look at this, these bulges right here remain, but we do have these hatches right here which will not allow this to lay down unless we get rid of them. So I've just been using a file because I don't really have to worry about what it looks like since there's going to be brass covering it up. Alright, so we got the part prepared. Now we have to bend this, and this bend right here is like this. So I have to flip this part over, and we've got the fold line, and these fold really nicely. And really all you do is, I just put my finger down on it, and before I even get this all the way up under, you can see that part starting to bend up. And that fold line is great. Alright, so I'll flip it over, and it goes in there just like this, and it's a perfect fit. So then at this point, just kind of squish this down a little bit, and now that matches the contour of that bend. So I'll just Dump this out a little bit. And flip it back over. And now I'm going to take some of this CA, and this is the clear Flexi CA. There's a really good amount of cure time with this. As you can see, I'm trying to be sparing with how much I'm putting on here, because I don't want, as usual, a bunch of this just oozing its way out. It looks terrible, and the cleanup on it isn't terribly easy either. Alright, so we got that. Go ahead and there we go. That part's in there. It's nice and flat, and I don't have any CA glue oozing its way out. Looks pretty cool. Alright, so up next then I gotta get these hatches here. So let me get these oriented properly. Alright, so they're both gonna go just about like that. Again, let me wipe the end of this off, because I don't want the spots of CA to be too large. Alright, and I'm going to put just a spot of CA right there. Now, we're going to use our wax pencil. That's what it looks like. Get the other one done here. All right, both hatches are on there. Now, mind you, no one is ever going to see this. This is never going to see the light of day. Alright, and the rails for that perforated platform fall perfectly into the etched out lines on that base part. So, I'm going to go ahead and take this off. Holding this quite firmly right now so it doesn't go anywhere on me. This is a little bit more CA glue than I usually work with in a regular day or a regular little project like this, if that's alright. Okay, it's now in place. The way this has been engineered has been excellent. I'm trying to get this to focus, but that looks really cool. And I mean, you might catch a slight glimpse of that from the side. As far as those hatches, I don't think you're ever going to see those again though. But we got that part done, so up next here we're going to go ahead and put these turret shells down on top of these turrets. And now the perfect part about this is, one, I can clamp these in place just using these tiny little Irwin quick grips. And really all I'm going to do is put down a little bit of the Tamiya white cap cement, the regular stuff. all around that, and then we're going to clamp it very loosely in place. I don't want to put too much pressure on it. It might deform that brass, and I don't want that to happen for sure. And then after that sets up, we'll be able to put this into a clamp. I've got a orbital clamp, which will allow me to position this in whichever way I need it, so I can attach the rest of the photo etch to this part. Let's go ahead. Move that toothpick with CA out of the way. Now, I will say with shipbuilding, I have found myself using the white cap cement more than ever. Once in a blue moon, I'd pull this out for a warbird or a tank or something like that. With ships, it just seems to be a really useful cement. Alright, and I'll go ahead and marry these up. Oops. Alright, 3 16-inch triple turrets are all finished. All the cement is finished, and it has gone off and welded these turret shells completely in place to the turrets themselves. So it's not the cleanest job. I had to do a lot of smushing and stuff like that, and then even after releasing the clamps a little bit, they sprang back a little bit, so I had to smush them again. So there is a little bit of, let's see here, zoom in, you might see a little bit of some glue and plastic boogerage at the joins, but hopefully under a little bit of primer and paint, it will largely disappear, along with maybe some washes and things like that, and some highlights to bring our attention to the raised bits and not the flaws. So the time is now coming on these turrets to start adding sub-assemblies to the turrets. And when I say sub-assemblies, I'm talking about these floater net baskets here, and some of the life rafts here. And we've got these anti-aircraft gun tubs that have to go in. And this railing here is probably going to go on just about last. But also, we've got some of these crane pieces to go on for turret number 1. It's down here, actually. We can see a couple like hoist or crane pieces. I guess you could call them hoists. And then for numbers 2 and 3, they have these one on either side. So I'm going to start off with the floater net baskets. I actually already have started off with the floater net baskets, but because I'm kind of showing how I've been doing this for everyone else, as we go, kind of demonstrate here my method. This is what the finished piece should look like. So now we've got this little piece of photo etch here. That's what it looks like up close. And you see there's an etch side and then there is a non-etch side. Now I recommend making sure that you pay very close attention to the etched and non-etched side. The etched side here has these little channels etched into it. And these are important because that is what these brackets right here fit into. Okay, so make sure that your photo etch is etched side down. Hopefully Alright, there we go. Trying to keep this out of the glare and hopefully get a little bit of focus going on here for you. It's just this glare kind of killing us. There we go. Block off some of that glare and we're in good shape. I found a piece of brass rod. I'm not really sure, and I don't have my calipers handy right now to tell you, but the way I measured for the correct rod was I just kind of stuck it up to these floater basket sides, and it looks about right. There's really nothing more scientific than that. And then, again, remember, the edge side of this is down. I put this into place over top of this part right here to kind of where I can just barely see the bottoms of the ends of the floater baskets over here and here. You just barely see the bottom of it past this bar. And then I took a kind of a flat, like a chisel blade on an X-Acto knife. And yep, I'm about to go with my finger too. Just start bending it up. Now, you don't have to have a perfect bend just yet, because after that, I took this and put it over like... Alright, so now it just kind of, if you've got the bar here, the piece of photo etch is just sitting like this over top of it. And I took some flat bladed tweezers, and I come in behind and just kind of squeeze it shut. And I'm really trying to make sure that I'm not going any thinner than this bar. Because again, I measured this bar up to just about the width, or I guess you could even say diameter, of the ends of the basket. Alright, so we'll let that come off. So this is where we're at so far. And this is not a very strong hinge, so just folding that in. Same thing on the other side. Alright, so the basket part of this is now bent to shape. And we did so on camera without it falling apart. So that's a win. So then the hurdle here is getting these to go onto these right here, and you want them all to be straight, or you want them all to be lined up the same way. And you have to remember, each 16-inch triple turret needs 2 of these, and they're on the back. We're going to put one here, and we're going to put one there. That's for all 3 turrets. So you have to make 6 of these just for these 16-inch turrets, for the main armament. We've already got 2 there, so we're good for 1. I'll do 2 more here so we can cover the construction of at least the number 1 and a number 2 or 3 turret. But what you're going to do is put on a little bit of CA glue, and yeah, I know it's not going to be real crystal clear here, just because, one, I can't hold this up to the camera and show, and I can't really get it that close to the camera to begin with, otherwise I wouldn't be able to see what I'm doing. But if I can get this started on there, then I can lift it up and show you. There we go. Alright, so that little channel, and you can see them on either end of this, is what those brackets fit into. Alright, well, I went ahead, there's a couple of steps on here, but we will go over everything. It won't be as, you know, to the piece as much as I put on this, just because, again, this video would probably take hours. But as you can see, I went ahead and got some ladders put into place. Get this to come into focus. On the side there and the side here. One goes on the back, however, for turrets 2 and 3. There's one that goes up on the rear of this gun tub as well, and they're both supposed to line up. So I'm going to wait until I get the gun tub in place with its ladder in order to get the ladder that goes on the actual turret. Take that gun tub off. Additionally, you can also see here I have gotten the blast bags put into place. And there is a tiny, very super thin piece of photo etch that goes around it. And I think it's just kind of supposed to represent the attachment point for the blast bag to the turret. It's almost impossible to see, actually. But we'll go ahead and put it in place. I found an easier way to do it than to actually glue it separately of the blast bags here. So, but the blast bags and that piece are going to go first. So let me go ahead and put this aside. And again, that was either a turret 2 or 3, so we're going to do this work on turret 1. Alright, that's what we're looking at. It is just about as thin as the lines in the palm of my hand. And again, it almost completely disappears when you have the blast bag in place. So next up, we'll go ahead and get a blast bag out. The way I went about doing this is, let me get the part over here, get this over here, and get this guy here. This is a orbital clamp Vitus bay, and I found it to be 100% necessary for doing stuff like this. I haven't been used to dealing with photo etch that is this extremely delicate. So the next thing I do is get this piece right here, and I want it loosely put into place. Alright, so I can spin this around, check. Looks like it needs to slide over just a touch. Alright. And yeah, I have big clumsy fingers here. I'm going to use tweezers to put this into place. But basically, with that already there, I can kind of drop this in. And the idea here is that I just kind of lightly play with that until it and that photo etch ring kind of fall into place, and it's there. Alright, so this is sitting as it should in that joint, and again that little bit of photo etch almost completely disappears. So now I'm going to take this, I'm going to tilt this back even more, and get a little extra thin. Too much. And from the bottom. And the reason why this works is it's a plastic, the blast bag is plastic and it's meeting the plastic inside the turret. And then it will kind of sandwich that little bit of photo etch in there. And now it's in place. It kind of gives me the opportunity a little bit to even that out or play with it a little bit if I want to. And I'm happy with where that is. So I'm going to get the rest of these all put in, and then we're going to look at the doing the ladders that go in between them. All right. Well, all of the blast bags, along with that teeny tiny little thin photo which is on there. Photo which you can barely see at all. But blast bags are in place, nicely cleaned up. So we're going to move on to ladders. Now this turret right here, turret number 1, gets 4 ladders up front here. 1, 2, 3, 4. It gets 1 on each side. There is no ladder in the back or anything like that, so this is the simplest of all the turrets to complete. So I'm going to go ahead and show how I do 1 ladder here. I'll do the rest off camera. So it calls for the ladders up front are going to be on the G photo etch fret, and it is number 14. Very sharp X-Acto. Just cutting right through. These very teeny tiny little attachment points. And it cuts through them really nice and easily. Alright, so after that, one thing I noticed here is these are very delicate, and the actual rungs of the ladder are prone to bending as well. So getting this off requires a certain degree of care and deliberation just to make sure we're not bending. And the photo etch is just so delicate. There we go. So I got that off. I'm going to transfer it over to, and again, I'm keeping this here to kind of cut down on the glare a little bit. And I transfer it over to the bit of tile. It's just a false marble tile, but it's a ceramic tile. Alright, so I want the etched side up on this. There we go. And I've got a very, very flat little rule here, which I'm going to put right there over the rungs of the ladder for the most part. I got a straight razor blade to come in behind and fold up the runner to the ladder. Now, after that's folded up, I'm going to put this really thin, flat rule over top of the other runner, and I'm going to slip this straight razor underneath the rungs, and I'm going to fold it up. You notice I don't need any photo etch bedding tool or anything like that for these. So this ladder is now bent in place, and we'll have a look close up. Alright, so as you can see, there is here it is on its side. Come on. Well, backside right now. But it's got these teeny tiny little legs. Come on. And that right there is what we're going to be putting CA glue on, and what will fasten it to the front of the turret. So I'm going to put this down here now. And we're going to move this out of the way. I'm going to move this into view. Give me just a moment here to get prepped with some CA. Be right back. Alright, so rather than using the medium CA, this is an extra thick. Gives me a 10 to 25 second cure time. And I feel like that gives me the best chance of success for getting these ladders in place. So I'm going to go ahead and I've got a little bit of that CA right here on this ramekin. Alright, so I've got my ladder in my pointed tweezers, which you can probably barely make out. There we go. And I'm going to dip the back two mounting points in that CA, and then the other mounting points in the CA. And then we're just going to get about as over top of it as I can with the camera right there. And I have to move this over just a touch. Alright, that is in place, and while it's not perfect, it'll do. So I've got 3 more up front and then 1 on each side to do, but those are going to be done off camera because I prefer, again, this be back here right underneath me rather than right underneath the camera. But we'll touch base here when we're all done with that. Alright, on to the next bit of stuff we're going to be putting into these turrets right here, and that is these rails right here. The sailors could tie themselves off to when they were on top of the turrets here. There's definitely more than what I've got here so far. I just wanted to attach a couple of different types, and there are 2 different types, just to make sure that everything works and I can show it on this video here. So this one right here, it actually doubles over. It folds onto itself and doubles over. And then these right here on the back, they are just single pieces. And I do realize it's kind of hard to see them. Just kind of barely make it out right there. So I'll go ahead and show off how I'm doing this. Alright, so currently we've got it like it's currently folded up at about a 90-degree angle, and what I need to do is begin the process of actually getting it to fold over onto itself. Once we get it started, it's very easy to complete. You start at one end and just start smushing it down throughout its entire length. Alright, and just for the heck of it, with the one I did on the other turret, I laid it flat into a photo etch folding device, kind of fed it in there, and then clamped it down nice and tight. And go ahead and unclamp it. Put this aside. And what we've got now is it's completely folded over onto itself, and it's doing that just to add a little bit of thickness. So with that complete, I next took a little bit of CA. I got to get a little bit more out here. And we need a toothpick. And I'm not going to put the CA on all of these teeny tiny little standoff pegs on the bottom of this. But just enough so that when I get it sat in there, it will be in good shape. And as you can see, it's not always right off the bat cooperating. There we go. Alrighty. Well, here is all those finished railings on top of the turret. They're all showing up actually fairly well, focus and all. Happy about that. So next thing we're going to jump into here is going to be having a look at some of the plastic pieces. One, we've got a, I'll go ahead and put him up. One, we've got a part that goes right here. It's a square little tub, and you can see it in the instructions here, H20, and that houses that, like it says, Mark 51 fire director here for the quad Bofors. I'm going to put this aside here. So H20 can be found on, of course, the H sprue, and the part is located right here. I'm going to go ahead and cut it out. And as you can see, it's just a teeny tiny little square tub. I'm going to go ahead and get it cleaned up. Now I do realize that getting the three main armament turrets completed doesn't seem like a lot, but it really does occupy pages of the instructions, both in the instructions that come with the kit and the instructions that come with the update set. The turrets are almost like little kits unto themselves. And usually one of the main things on the ship that draws the eye. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and get this smoothed out a little bit. 400 grit. Grit all the way up through 800 grit. Alright, and the other side as well. The pieces are this small, they're not entirely easy to hang on to. You can see there's a tiny little sink mark right there. So it seems repetitive here over 3 turrets. So I cannot imagine what it's going to feel like when we get to the secondary armament, those dual 5-inch gun turrets. But at any rate, this right here gets mounted right there. So we're going to need a little bit of CA glue because this is a plastic. Well, you know what? We actually have plastic underneath the brass, don't we? So we can touch a little bit of extra thin down into the holes there. But I am going to put a little bit of CA. Doesn't hurt. And I will say it's nice to have some plastic pieces to rest fingers against. So that's in there solidly. The next part that we've got plastic-wise is this tub right here. Now before we can do much with this tub though, we'll see how it goes on. It goes on pretty well. If I'm going to be honest, I've already tried it a couple times. Alright. So that's what it's going to look like there. But we still have to get some ammunition racks installed inside of this gun tub right here. So that will be the next thing we do before we put this into place. Alrighty, besides the anti-aircraft gun tub, which we'll get to, a couple last little things here we've got to do for these turrets is getting these Carley Floats constructed. And each turret has a total of 4 of them. You can see there's 2 on each side of it. So, yep, and just, yep, okay. Each side's got 2, and they are made up of 4 individual parts. So, let me go ahead and get this up to the camera so we can have a look. Alright, so the film that I've got this on is actually one of the backings of the photo etch. It's just tacky enough to hold things in place. So I've gone about doing so just by starting off with putting the part that is, let's see, that is G8. Start with putting G8 there. G7 are these parts right here. So, alright, so my next step here is going to be with G8. I'll go ahead and pick this up with some tweezers. And I'm holding it firmly, but not too firmly, because I don't want the tweezer jaws to kind of go like that and fling the part into the abyss. Happens more often than I'd like to admit. I'm going to take some of the extra thick CA glue, and we're just going to put a little bit, hopefully that's coming into focus for us. Here we go. I'm just going to put a little bit on these cross members here on this part, on G7. So with that done, I'm going to flip this over, because I want to put this into place on top of G8. And the handy thing with that sticky backing paper or plastic is G8 just sits in place without any trouble at all. Doesn't move around, so I can work with the G7 part before that CA is cured to get it in place where I want it. Alright, so I'm going to get these. This is not a real complex assembly, but it is just a touch fiddly. So that's what we've got so far, G7 and G8. Sorry about the focus there. I'm sure some of the sheen from this is really causing some issues. Alright, so that's got to set up and cure, but what I can do now is take this here And this is labeled as part PJ1. PJ sprue, and there's only one type of part on here, and it's labeled 1, so just stands to reason that that's exactly where you'd find it. Everything's been cut off and cleaned up, so we have no problems there. And there's just some teeny tiny little sprue nibs on here that after you cut the part off, you just have to go back in with an X-Acto knife, a very sharp one, and kind of clean off the remaining little nibs. So I'm going to put that relatively close. And I'm going to go back and I'm going to get some of this extra thick CA. And here and there I'm just going to touch this to some of the little raised ribs on the part PJ1. And it's still pulling off a little bit more, but that's okay. This is going to be on the back side. We're not actually even really going to be able to see any of this. So now I can get the parts G7 and G8 in my tweezers. And I can just go ahead and put this into place. Alright, I'm going to turn this around and make sure everything lines up. It looks good. Now these don't have to be exact, but so far this is what we've gotten. This is the back side of it. So that's going to have to cure for a little bit. But while that's curing, we can have a look at this part right here. This part right here is labeled as D16. I'm going to hold this up to the camera so we can have a look at just how delicate this is. Alright, and what we've got to do with this so I got that in my tweezers. Each of these little, I guess, legs have to be twisted. They twist very easily, but doing so with a light touch definitely requires some deliberation. And there's no one prescribed way of doing so. Which direction to twist in or what have you. But there they go. So after this is done, you can see it's just going to kind of sit there like a spider. If you can see that with the glare. Alright, so with this, I'm going to flip it over, and now this part goes right on top here, and this is quite fiddly. So what I've found particularly helpful in getting this into place is getting a little bit of extra thin or super thin CA on a glue looper. Now Mind you, I have to hold this down. I'm going to do so with a airbrush needle. And then I can come in here with the super thin and touch it to the part and look for the capillary action to happen between the photo etch and the plastic. After that cures a little bit, I can go in and get the others. But it is a bit of a time intensive and delicate process. So after I get the rest of this glued up and I get 2 more of these here, we're going to go ahead and get those attached to the turret, and then we'll talk about the quad Bofors gun tub. Well, we've got those Carley Floats mounted on the back. I went ahead and got the floater net baskets mounted on the back. We also saw the ladders put on, so I got that one. And I said I would talk about this anti-aircraft gun tub a little bit. It is not permanently attached right now. It is super fragile. But I can go ahead and take it off and hold it up. So I did not film this, and I do not plan on filming any other gun tubs that have these ammo racks. Each piece literally was about 20 to 30 minutes of fiddling around until it finally sat right, and then I go ahead and try to get a little bit of CA glue on it, and then it would go cockeyed again. I have to fiddle with it again until I was finally able to get them glued into place. So it's not really good content to watch, a lot of me swearing, but they're in there along with these teeny tiny little ladders right there on the inside, and those weren't any fun either, because I don't think the Verifier detail upset properly accounts for having 2 of those for 2 gun tubs for the number 2 and 3 turret, and I'll explain why I say that. The part is mentioned right there, F41, and if you look closely enough at the instructions here, looks like there's some artifacts of what would also be an F41 over here in between these ammunition racks, because there's no other part that it mentions that would be, and it is definitely brass. Same thing with this picture over here. And when you go and look for F41, let's see here, it is right here. There is only 2. So if you're putting 2 of those per anti-aircraft gun tub, then you're going to need a total of 4. What I did find out though is on another fret, oh right here, same fret actually, there is this F40 right here. Now I scoured through the instructions on the detail upset and nowhere is F40 mentioned. So I went ahead and cut it out, cut a rung of the ladder off, and used it in place of F41. So that's why I've actually got 2 on this gun tub. But I do not think that there are the correct amount of parts in order to do a gun tub 2 times. So I'm going to put that aside now. It's so delicate I'm afraid to breathe on it anymore. But we did get all of the foot railings on here. Like I said, the floater net baskets, the Carley Floats on either side. So I'm really stoked with how this looks. The last thing that I really have to do, besides the barrels on this, is to get those little cranes attached. And there are differences here between turret 1 and turrets 2 and 3. So as you can see here, there are these little hoists on either side for turrets 2 and 3, and there are hoists right here just on the port side on turret 1. So I'm going to go ahead and work on getting the parts out. We'll go over the construction of 1 and its placement into the turret. I'll be right back. Alright, moving on to having a look at these cranes here again. We're going to work on, for the example in this one, we're going to work on the E24 along with the I-47, and it makes up one of the hoists that has the double supports here, and these will go on to turret 2 or 3 here on the starboard side, kind of midway back on the top of the turret. So go ahead and show how I do that. It's pretty quick and pretty easy. Basically all we're doing is right here's the edge side of that part, and we're just going to bend it over onto itself. Nothing real fancy. And once we get it to a spot where it's close, I'll take a little bit of the, just a little bit of the thick CA glue. I'm just going to drop just a touch in there. And we don't need a whole lot because it'll come oozing out the sides. And then we can just close this up on itself. One thing you want to pay particular attention to though is when you are closing it up on itself that it lines up. Alright, and as you can see, you definitely want to make sure it lines up because there's a little pin on the end, and that goes through a hole in the E25 part. So while that is doing its CA curing thing, we're going to put it down. And we'll have a look now at the E25 part. Again, real simple fold here. This one folds down. There's the etched part of it. And so all we're going to do is just start folding it down. And oops, pretty fragile, so you don't want to put a lot of pressure on it with anything, tweezers or. When I did the first one of these on my own, you can see I keep dropping it, I did not bother putting CA glue into this slight little fold right here that we just made. And that's just for the simple fact that we don't want the CA to block up that hole, because there's another part, and I didn't actually break it out yet. And that is, let's see here, it's on the A fret. Right there, A35. So that's nothing I'm really going to do on camera just because you can see how big it is. But basically, cut one of these out, you fold it over onto itself, and then that goes up into, this is the bottom side of E24. It goes up into the bottom side into that hole right there. So I don't necessarily think that it's something I need to show on camera or anything like that. And for the most part it's so tiny and small that as soon as I got it over here I'd lose sight of it. So let's go ahead and see if we're done curing on this yet. That looks good. Alright, so we can take this part now and this part here. I'm going to pick this part up in my tweezers. And again, just have a little bit of this thicker CA glue here. And we want it on the bottom, and you know that's the bottom of the part because that's where the pin would be pointing up toward us if we've got the bottom up. So just a touch of this thick CA right there. And then this right here, fits into place right there. Sorry, I bumped the camera there, folks. And that is how these hoists go together in from flat photo etch to a three-dimensional hoist piece. Now this pin this pin on the bottom here, that goes into the hole on the turret right there. And then those other supports, they'll kind of come to the side here. And you may have to bend them back just a hair so that they will hit the sides of the turret. And then you can glue them into place. But that's that for those cranes. At this point we're just about finished up, so let me get everything tidied up here and we'll come back and close this out. Well, there we have it. All three turrets, turret 1, 2, and 3, all wrapped up. The barrels on these turrets are not glued into place, just for the simple fact that I want to paint in the darker steel color here around the base of that, mask it off, and it'll be a little bit easier to do with these detached. Additionally, I want to make sure I've got some sort of mechanism or process to make sure that all three are at the exact same level and they're going straight. So that's going to require a little bit of thought on my part in order to get there. But for now, I'm happy to say a lot of work went into getting these where they're at right now. There's a lot of photo etch, more than I'm usually comfortable with dealing with such a small little part or area right there. And I know there's only more to come here, so I'm going to go ahead and slide these out of the way and we can discuss what's coming up. Alright, so we'll zoom out a little bit here. Alright, so in our instructions we've covered the main turrets, so we're going to move on to the secondary armament. And some of these other tiny little sub-assemblies. The Orlikins we're not overly concerned with because they come 3D printed. Now getting those out of the 3D printed framework, that should be a challenge, but they're already constructed. Got some reels here with photo etch, some binoculars, of course these Mark 57 radars. And we'll also probably go ahead and look into the sub-assemblies here with the small air complement here at the stern of the ship and its catapults. There's a lot of photo etch that goes into this, and there's some aftermarket in that detail upset that goes into the plane. And we'll probably try to get as much knocked out before we get into the decks, because the decks we're going to have to start drilling the holes and putting down the wood and everything like that. So I think for video 6 we're going to be looking at getting all of the sub-assemblies done before we jump into any of the major deck and hull construction. But until that time comes, please stay safe and happy modeling.